Hey guys, it's Dani. Today we are working with some Zygopetalum orchids. I want to show you a little project or experiment that I've been working on off camera. I don't know if you know about this. Since there is such a debate between our Zygopetalums epiphytic or terrestrial, and some of you might already know my side based on what I see with them, I think that at least some species are completely terrestrial and they do better in a terrestrial setup. Now, to further fuel this suspicion that I have, you guys might remember I tried the Cymbidium repot me mix. Well, they say it's good for Zygopetalums as well. I might not be very often thinking that Zygos do enjoy a sort of a terrestrial mix. So I did a little bit of an experiment. I potted some of my Zygos in my bark and sphagnum moss mix and some of the Zygos in a soil mix. So I want to show you the results today and my thoughts on what I'm observing so far. I potted them a few months ago, so it's been a little bit of time. I didn't do this yesterday. And also, I'm gonna pot with you a Zygopetalum today because I kind of need to get to some of these Zygos. So let's go to the repotting table. Okay, so these 5 Zygos I kind of purchased around the same time. The other 3 that I have, no, they're not from this year. So I'm just going to refer to these guys because I actually did repot them about the same time, in the same week, I think. And yeah, as you would expect, these ones in the decorative containers, they are potted in bark and sphagnum moss. And these guys are potted in my, well, at this point it's an all-purpose soil from Compo, believe it or not, mixed with 50% perlite. It's the best I could find at the time, and it's actually not a very bad soil. And can we actually see a very striking difference? I know, it's incredible. These guys, which are potted in soil, look so much tighter. Their leaves are just so better looking, in my opinion. They're whiter, they have a better color, they have a better sheen to them, both of them, even though they're very different Zygopetalums. Even this guy, which is a tinier Zygopetalum, not so broad-leafed. Do we see these leaves? They look really good. And then you have these guys, which I assure you, they were purchased either at a discount, either not, but at the same time. They are growing, but no, they just don't look the same. And honestly, the chances of this incredible difference being down to different varieties, I don't know, you guys. It's fishy. I don't think variety is the issue here. Look at this guy. Look how discolored and just thin these leaves are. And I did water them with the same type of water, fertilized water, yet I do seem to have these super big differences. So what is the next step that I can do to further evaluate if indeed a more terrestrial mix is better for them? Simple. I'm gonna switch these guys to a terrestrial mix. I want to do so though with prettier pots than these. These were just some pots that I had on the terrace. I don't like them much, and this pot particularly is not tall enough. Can we see that the orchid started to create roots at the top and then push them down? So yeah, at some point I might switch the pot for these guys as well, but you know what? Soil is not so damaging for the roots as bark is when we repot. So these will be very easy to repot, plus this guy. I did not correctly arrange him in the pot, and now I have the old part of the orchid in the middle. So definitely I need to rearrange some stuff. And also I do want to get some prettier pots because, let's face it, orchids are mostly not in bloom. Might as well enjoy what we're seeing even without blooms, right? Luckily I have one super pretty pot that I purchased from IKEA before the lockdown. So let's just repot one of these guys right now to show you how I go about it. So here is the little pot. It actually has a name as well, saltpeter, and it also has a nice little dish which has a different name. There we go. I think it's gonna look super pretty with a Zygopetalum, and the one that I will repot is this guy. Why him in particular? Well, they're all no IDs, but with this one, I wrote on the tag that it looks a little bit like Mackay, which is actually one of my favorite Zygopetalum species. The flowers look so pretty and it's supposed to be very, very fragrant. So I do remember this one looked a little bit like it, although the flowers were withering off. So maybe it's gonna be super fragrant as well. It was the only one of its kind that I found at the flower shop, so I do wanna take really good care of it. And if you research the species, you will see that it's described as a terrestrial. So that's why he's going in the nice, pretty pot, because I'm biased. So first we need to unpot the orchid. The roots were okay, so that's not the issue. Look at those roots. They have active root tips. It's just that the plant does not look as good as the ones potted in soil. So I am curious to see if there will be any visible improvement after this. Wow, look at this root system. It is actually really good. I'm not gonna go above and beyond to remove every single little piece. There's no need for that. Okay, so I removed most of the medium and all of the dead roots that I could see. Time to pot it up. And as I was saying, my mixture is made out of some sort of all-purpose soil plus 50% perlite. I add a lot of perlite, and I hope you can see inside that for a soil medium, this is still very airy and fluffy. I don't want to suffocate the roots. I just want to give them maybe more humidity, a different environment altogether, that's for sure. It's actually very easy to pot with soil in comparison to orchid mixtures. And one of the things that I do, especially with these types of solid pots, is I use a bamboo or barbecue skewer, however you want to call them, and make sure that the medium falls into place. You can absolutely do this with epiphyte mix as well, and I do show it in one of my videos as a little repotting tip. It's a good way to make sure that you don't have big air pockets left in the medium because you cannot really squeeze on the pot. Okay, and we're pretty much done. I'm gonna go and wet it really well. The mix is very dry. I didn't work with it in a long time. One thing that usually happens, you might have seen with the other Zygopetalum, the perlite tends to get stained. It always does this. If you don't like the look, you can always sprinkle a little bit of bark on top. I might do that as well just for aesthetics. Keep in mind though that the bark on top is actually acting like mulch. It will maintain more humidity in the pot. And maybe that's not something you want if you want to attempt this. I'm always assuming you will try to attempt this or think about it. So yeah, I don't know at this point. I will see how it goes. I might sprinkle a little bit of bark on top. If the situation gets very ugly, I might not. We'll see. But definitely mulching usually keeps humidity in the soil, and it applies to pots as well. And would you look at this guy? He's so handsome now. I cut away that brown leaf that you saw there, made it just a little bit prettier, so I can definitely see this orchid integrate better into a very stylish environment now. Not that I have a stylish environment, but hey, I'm working towards it actually. I do want to prettify a little bit my growing space, you might already know, and I'm in the process. I'm doing a lot of stuff in the meantime. That's why I didn't make a tour just yet, because I'm not happy yet. But that's besides the point. Let's get back to the Zygopetalums. Alright, so my microphone's battery died, and this is actually quite a few days later. You can see a lot of changes happened. So let me just pick up really fast where I left off and show you the little pots that I now have with my Zygos. Alright, so I opted for some glazed clay pots. Why? Well, because they look better than plastic pots, and also they are glazed, which means they are not going to lose water. So I will not have to water way too often. They will look pretty, and also they are quite heavier than plastic pots, which will keep these orchids in place. However though, I discovered that the moment one of these pots has a drainage hole, the price doubles. It's a mystery. I don't know why that is. So what I decided to do, this is a normal pot by the way, I have two of them because they had a decent price, but others did not. So what I decided to do was just drill some holes in my decorative containers, which are just so cheap in comparison. Quite paradoxical because there's a piece of material missing, right? I'm joking. So I'll link it down below to a tutorial on how to drill holes in ceramic pots. So now my pot, even though I cannot really show you, does have a drainage hole at the bottom. Also, the little trays. Being that these pots are pretty heavy, the plastic trays that I have kind of bent. They're a little bendy. So I got myself some ceramic trays as well, which are not very heavy. The problem is nowadays they don't coat them. They leave them like that, and these trays absorb water and they transfer water to the furniture or wherever you put them on, which is not okay. I don't know why they do that. So I looked through my boyfriend's stuff and I found some clear coat, and I applied 2 coats of it on the tray. It looks beautiful. It is waterproof. It is not going to destroy any of my furniture. And I have to say, the display looks wonderful. I might go ahead and quote-unquote mulch a little bit when the perlite becomes unbearable to look at, because it will. But first I want to get a sense of how fast this dries, how much I should water, and things of the sorts. I'm not in a hurry. And as a final note, let me just remind you that just because I switched this and I'm using soil for my Zygopetalums doesn't mean you have to do that as well. Again, it's that assess your situation, and if you want to try out stuff, do try them, try with one plant, but it really boils down to what products you have in your area, what is good for you, what works better for you, and so on. This is not the best setup ever for Zygopetalums. I'm sure there are other setups which are just as successful, maybe more. So if you do already have a setup that works great for you, keep that and grow your Zygopetalums the best way you can. This is kind of new for me, I have to say, with Zygos. I did have some issues in previous years. For the past 2 years or so, I kind of got the hang of things, but I have a funny suspicion that here where I live, especially, this medium is just much more suited. Maybe it stays wetter, maybe it hugs the roots properly and they like that. You can see that these guys don't produce aerial roots, and that's because they really don't like excessive air and drying out. Maybe it's the pH of the soil. I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe I will find out. But for sure, I can tell you, I see a huge difference between the Zygopetalums that I had in my bark sphagnum moss mixture, which grew in that medium for the past year and a half, and the ones that I immediately put in soil and they just took off. The progress was just so much faster, so much better in this setup. So having this very stark difference in front of my eyes every day, you know, I just cannot continue with my old setup because it's not efficient, it doesn't work out. So there we have it. And why not use some pretty to look at pots as well. As for this shelf and the little setup that I have here, well, I do plan to make a greenhouse tour when everything is finished and explain the purpose of everything. This is not done. As you can see, I don't have artificial light on top of these guys. However, I do want to install just a few lamps to provide a little bit of extra light. I have one there, but that's the terrestrial and it needs a disc in order to sit, in order to mount it. And for now I used some wood pieces, but I don't have enough of them. So I need to cut a few more pieces and then I will install all of them. But yeah, I do believe this is where my Zygopetalums will sit. I used to have them in the cool zone. They're not cool growers, they're not heat lovers either, but they're not necessarily supposed to sit there. They can do great here because the ambient in my greenhouse will be pretty intermediate to slightly warm anyway because of the AC, and I know they can do okay here, so I won't hassle too much with humidifiers and things of the sorts. I don't think they need them. But for now, I think I'm good. I'm gonna keep you up to date. Hopefully everything will go okay. Anyway, I think that's about enough for today. Thank you so much for joining. Who would have thought, you guys, a few years ago when I was making videos such as orchids that hate me and stuff of the sorts, that I would have Zygopetalums actually reblooming for me. How the turns have tabled, right? I'm joking. So that said, thank you for joining me today. Subscribe to my channel for more orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, updates, and other fun orchid subjects. If you wish to support the channel, do consider becoming a member or visit the merch store linked down below in the description. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's always nice to stay in touch there as well. And I will see you all next time because I have some very exciting videos coming up. So turn on your notifications. You won't want to miss them. Bye.